It is Wager Talk. Last call, first call, well, kind of last call. A couple games have already tipped off at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll talk about those in-game if you'd like, and we're going to talk about all the other huge conference semifinals and finals conference tournament action. Also some NBA. Hey, even some NHL. This Saturday is loaded, and this is last call live at 11 a.m. Eastern on Saturdays, and then archived and replayed all day long. If you're watching this live, though, chime in on the live chat here on YouTube TV and let us know games you want us to look at, any specific questions, and we will get to them with Vegas runner Gianni the Greek, Ross Benjamin, and, of course, Andrew Mcinnis talking a little hockey at the end. I'll also chime in and answer some questions as we go. But let's start it right off with Ace, the Steam Report. We do this every weekday at 12:30 Eastern on Wager Talk Today, and we do it here on Last Call on the weekends. Ace, welcome to the show. What is moving here on Saturday?
All right, we got involved in two of the early games. I did not release for subscribers because I didn't have a strong opinion on either. But we did go for those that may have a lean and live bet, 306-529 Maine, 306-529 Maine in the championship game at +8. And then in the Ivy League semifinals, Princeton-Yale, game 602, we went under 146.5 and 146. So two early games, but again, neither of those I released as premium plays, but as you guys know, explained multiple times, I take a percentage of the account, so obviously I want those sides to get a W today.
Hey, so I'll tell you this, the under's looking pretty good in that Princeton game because 4.5 minutes in, Princeton has not scored yet. It's 9-0 Yale. And Bryant is up 6-4. That Bryant game was interesting. I did a free play video last night and posted it late last night, and the opener was 6.5. I actually leaned Bryant, strong home court, number 1 seed, but then it went up to 8 today. And you know what's going to happen. It'll probably land 7, right? It's amazing how sharp and tight these lines are right now.
Yeah, and actually, I saw some take back. Like, I saw it go back. Like, when we bet it at +8, it went down to 7.5, maybe even some 7s. But then before tip-off, I saw some of the sharp outs that I have access to went to -8 and even 8 -115. So definitely a difference of opinion on that Bryant game between the guys I work with and someone out there that obviously likes the Bryant side. But other than, I also have a prop for you guys. Just didn't want to forget it because I know there's a lot of prop fans out there. Wisconsin, Michigan State. We went under on John Tonje. Tonje under 18.5 total points from -120 all the way to -135 under 18.5 points. Otherwise, it's mostly totals. So far, if you'd like me to share some of those totals, I can knock those out of the way. We also bet the under in Loyola Chicago, VCU. That's the Atlantic 10 semifinal, under 138.5, game 606. In the Mid-American Conference Championship game, Miami O and Akron, went over 157.5 and 158. And then in the Big East Conference Championship game, Creighton and St. John's, we went over 140.5. And finally, in the SEC semifinals, a lot of points expected, Alabama and Florida over 174 and 174.5. So it's been mostly totals. Not surprising, like you said, lines get really tight. The deeper we go into these conference tournaments, they'll loosen up a little bit at the start of March Madness. That always happens because you get such an influx of recreational bettors that live for that first weekend, especially that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's absolute mayhem out here. If you've never been to Vegas for Final Four, start of the March Madness, I highly recommend it. The only comparable event is the Super Bowl. But the 4 days, actually, I think, trump it because of the fact it's spread over 4 days. Where the Super Bowl, it's the lead up into the week, but then it's that final game. It's only a couple hours. Most people already done betting. It's almost like, especially with this year's Super Bowl, the way it went, not all that much excitement after the first half. But when it comes to March Madness, I still remember the first time I came here and I went to the Mirage probably at 7 a.m. and I couldn't find a seat. They were all, I remember there wasn't all that many casinos back then, as many as there are now. And more importantly, the Mirage was one of the newer ones, one of the nicer sports books and poker rooms. And it was standing room only. I mean, the floor was taken. Like I don't know if you remember how that
right.
All big screens and then all the tellers lined up all the way up there. They just made people move back against the wall and sit because they wanted bettors to be able to line up and fire. but it was just mayhem, and it's continued, man. I get excited every March Madness. Like I'd say, no matter how long I've been here, once that first weekend starts, and you'll get a lot more value because of all the influx of recreational bettors. And we all talk about it all the time. Once the landscape of the market changes, expect the lines to also change, meaning they'll get tighter as the tournament progresses, but they have to factor in the public money because in so many of them games, that public money is going to outweigh wise guy money, where usually, an Ivy League team or the smaller conference teams, those games aren't going to attract all that much recreational bettors action. But it will in March Madness because they're betting, the first 4 games that start at 9, then the next 4 games, the next 4 games, the next 4 games. And that money, because of all that money, you tend to find a lot of value if you're patient.
Yeah, I was going to say the one difference, too, with March Madness is on that Thursday or that Friday. Thursday alone, you've got 16 games instead of one Super Bowl. And you've got 4 games, like you said, going on at one time. And I think it was more important back, 20 years ago because not everybody could get all the games on every network for free like you can now. Back in the 90s, you could only get like one game. And then they did the DirecTV package. I used to get that in the late 90s, early 2000s. And now everyone has. So, people forget you couldn't stream the games or watch them all. You get one local game. And if it was a local team, they wouldn't even switch off. It was a 30-point blowout. So, you go to the garage, you can see all 4 games.
All of them. Yep. Instead of waiting for that ticker to come across and watching your game on the ticker and stuff. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what you would do, is go to the sports books on the strip because you could see the games, all of them, at the same time.
Yeah, and of course, there was no in-game betting back then. Maybe there was halftime betting on the tournament games. There weren't even totals on any games until maybe the tournament. Things have really changed, and now we're looking at the board here, and, all season long you've got South Carolina State and Norfolk State who are playing in the finals. They're bettable all year long. It's so different. There's 364 teams this year in Division I, and they had point spreads on every one of them. And even up until a couple years ago, that wasn't the case.
And that didn't happen. I still remember when I first started moving at the Stardust, Steve, the extra board games, they had that were called like extra, you know what I mean? We used to call it the junk teams. And I'm talking like the MAC was in those. Like
no, the MAC was the added board. Yeah, the added board. It wasn't the extra back there. It was the added board.
It was MAC,
Missouri Valley. It was like big name teams.
And it was nobody betting them really except the sharp bettors. It was like kind of like the sharps against the books in those. And it was like, all the rest of the college football, but those were those added games. You remember that time. That was, wow, now those teams, now you're getting, like you said, sides, totals, first halves, second halves, props, live in-game. There's just so many ways to get down team totals. None of that stuff was available to us. We had a side, we had a total, and if you were lucky, they'd post the second half line on most of the, the primetime game, the TV games.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to be a national spotlight game to even get a total in college football back in the 90s, because I started in 1996 full-time, and I remember the MAC came on, I believe, 99. It might have been 98, it was 99. It was a few years after I started, and Brian Leonard is like an Akron grad, and Brian Leonard was always all over the MAC, and I did extremely well the first few years with MAC college football, and I hardly touch it now. It's all been very systematic, and the lines are sharper now. But, yeah, the times have changed, and the younger viewers out there were mentioning this because we're just pointing out that these lines, totals, in-game betting, first half totals on every game, team totals on every game. It's just this stuff wasn't around even a decade ago. But like you say, the lines are sharper than ever, but there's more ways to attack it, right? You're talking about team totals, money lines, first halves, and that's kind of what these syndicates have started to do.
Yeah, and Crack talked about that in a video he did with Kelly. And, now it's awesome that you get sharp, like willing to talk about the things that before you'd keep tucked away because you didn't want your edge to be taken. You know what I mean? Like I remember having there's that Tuesday meeting every week that would get a bunch of sharp bettors together. The Tuesday meeting, it became famous. Yeah, to talk about, we'd go around the table and talk every college football game, every NFL game, and everybody gave their opinions and stuff. And it was like the golden rule. Nobody talks about anything once you leave this room. Anything that was shared, like any so-called inside information, wasn't talked about, or any edge we saw wasn't talked about because the market would catch up. But now you got everyone sharing that stuff, and it's amazing. Like a great point that Crack made was the first halves. Like we tend to avoid them, but that's the truest line that you're actually going to be able to bet into. Like you're not going to get those fouls that you get at the end of the game where, you have a great total, you have a dead under, and a team's down 12, and you're like, they're not going to, it's over, right? but then for whatever reason, the coach just starts fouling, even though they're not coming back, and a dead under ends up going over. That's not going to happen in the first half. Like that will not happen. So just one of those things to look for in the March Madness, because don't overlook those first half. I see someone asking a question on Florida. It's funny you said that, because I talked about last week a guy that I trust his power ratings a lot when it comes to college basketball. He never used to give them to me. He just would tell me his top 10, but not the numbers in between. Make a long story short, last week it was Duke. He had Duke at the top. This week he sends me, he likes Florida. Florida, he thinks, is the best team in the country right now, followed by Duke. But he thinks Florida is a little bit better than Duke at this time. As far as the question of anything on Alabama and Florida, all I see is Florida money so far. Now, it's a little bit early because that's a little later game, afternoon game, but they're betting Florida, and they're betting it with the over. They're betting Florida and over in that game. And as you can see, I talked about, we bet the over as well at 175, 74, forgive me. Now I think you're looking at 76, over 176. So definitely sharp money on the over, but the public's betting it as well. So if you're going to bet the over, you probably don't want to wait on that. But sometimes when it gets way out ahead, 3-4 points up, then you'll see another group, or even the same one that bet the over, maybe come back and take some of that under back. So if you missed it, I never urge you to take like 3 points worse, 4 points worse. Sometimes it's better off to let it pass and see if it comes back the other way, because a lot of times they do with the totals. Then with that said, it's a high total, 170 plus. A lot of variance in that. You know, usually, like if it's expected a low scoring game, each half point matters. Each points matter a little more. We're expecting, 200 points. Each half point doesn't matter all that much, at least in the total. But I think when this game tips off, they're going to need Alabama. They're going to need Alabama to get it done. And little revenge. Florida covered earlier, right? They were dogs against them, a week or so ago. And at home in Alabama, and Florida was able to get the win. And no surprise, 192 points. So total was going to be jacked up regardless. I'm actually surprised they didn't put the total out even higher, like open it at 177, 176 and a half, somewhere along those lines, especially since that last game on March 5th closed, I think 178, 178 and a half. But they brought it back a little bit lower. I'm always cautious of that, especially when the game was close like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and a game flies over. But then you look and you're like, wait, this total's lower than last time. And you even have some recency bias with Alabama scoring 99 and 93 so far. Florida scoring 90, 95 so far. Those always worry me when I see that. Like usually when you have recency bias coupled with these two teams just played and gave us 190 plus points, why not jack the total up even higher? You know what they're going to bet. You know the bettors are going to go over. Even if the groups come in and take the under, big deal. We're just going to help you manage some of that risk and eliminate some of it for you. That one worries me. That one sticks out as worrying me. Like I said, we already bet it, so I'm on the bet. But that's one I will not be releasing to subscribers for sure, because usually when I see that, it worries me.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite contrarian fade the public angles in all of sports is to play favorites whenever the public's on a dog. We do see that a lot. You talked about with March Madness. We see it in the NFL playoffs. We see it in March Madness, that all of a sudden the public starts backing dogs because they love quality, high-ranked teams. So we'll be doing a fade the public video next week for that.
Not to interrupt you. That's so big. That's so big what you just said. Because when I see that, Steve, in the back end of a couple access books that I have, friends of mine that have sheets, and one book, actually, he's got like 300 plus players. So it's a bigger sample size than a sheet with 20 players. Make a long story short, whenever I see that not only are the recreational bettors taking the dog, and that sticks out, obviously, again, when you see a 7-point favorite or a minus 300 money line and 80% of the money's on that team, it should be on that team. You know what I mean? The money line says they should win the game close to 8 out of 10 times. But when they're taking the dog, and more importantly, think that they don't need the points, like they're taking it on the money line, like, for example, it's not happening. But in this Florida-Alabama game, if they were not only just betting Alabama plus the 3.5, but bypassing that and taking the money line, That always sticks out to me. I look for reasons. And again, you can't get rich fading the public because you're not getting 11 to 10. That's the bottom line. But red flags should fly. And what I do is I look for reasons, try to find reasons to bet the other side. I'm not going to make them up. But if I see some of the things that I look at reflect the other side, the favorite, I feel so much more confident. I'm willing to play such a bigger bet when I see the casual bettors taking the dog and, more importantly, betting them on the money line as if the points don't even matter.
I totally agree. I never was talking about this year, my NFL Fade the Public video. Oh, the public's crushing it. Back the public. I was like, look, I've always said we don't blindly fade the public, as you know, and we use it as a filter. There's 30 different things I'm looking at with every game I handicap. And that is one of my favorite filters is to play. What I like about it, Johnny, is that you're getting a quality team. Fading the public doesn't work blindly in the NFL because I'm not backing the 2-14, 2-15 Panthers. I'm not backing the Patriots because they can't catch up. These terrible offensive teams just can't catch up when they get behind. But yeah, I love it when the public is on a rare dog in the NFL. Like the Philadelphia-Pittsburgh game this year stood out to me back in the regular season. Eagles at home. Eagles-Commanders. I think the Commanders are getting some public love in the championship game. I thought that was one of the best plays I saw all year in the NFL was, not my Washington Commanders. They weren't going to the Super Bowl. I just couldn't envision that. It didn't look right. But I bring that up with the high totals because I think with a high total in any sport or an extremely low total in any sport, you blindly play the over on the biggest totals. You blindly play the under in the lowest totals. I remember Gabe Morency told me he was on the elevator with Jimmy Vicario 20 years ago in Vegas, and that was a tip Vicario gave him 20 years ago. I had Ralph Michaels run this. But it's another contrarian indicator because the public is always on overs until it's the highest total on the board. So you can make an argument they're not set high enough.
What did Ralph come up with when you asked?
So I had Ralph run this about 2 years ago. We haven't updated it since last season, but I had him look at all 6.5s and under lower in baseball. And if you had blindly played every total that was 6.5 or less in baseball to the under, you'd made money 8 out of 9 years on the blind. Up until I think it was up to about 2 seasons ago. We'll update that. We've seen more of them the last couple of years, so I kind of haven't updated it since. But for those that don't know baseball, as Ace, 7 is a critical number, and you very rarely see below 7. So, when we had 6.5 from like 2011 to 2019 or something, it won 8 out of 9 years just blindly. 8 of the 9 seasons.
If you went back even further, it would be even higher. Because if you remember, you were here in the late 90s like I was. That's fine. I got it here at 96. That's
Pedro
crazy.
Martinez, Randy Johnson.
And do you remember they wouldn't go below 7? Like that was it. Yep. They charged it minus 140, minus 150 under 7, but you didn't see any 6.5s, hardly ever. And now you see 5.5s in some total. So it shows you like how the market becomes more efficient. But back then we were making so much money betting those unders, smashing those unders because of the fact they wouldn't move it off the 7. So like it should have been a true 5.5. You know what I mean? Like you see now 5.5s, you see 6s. That never happened. So you could really take advantage of it. And kind of like college basketball, you're only going to go so high. NFL, you're only going to go so high. College football, only going to go so high with totals or so low with totals. And I think those give you the most edge. They're so advantageous to look at it that way, where you would think the opposite. Like the highest totals, you're probably going to go under. You're going to look for unders. Or the lowest totals, you're going to look to bet the over in those low totals. But I think it's the opposite because usually you only could go so low where really the true number should be even lower, like a lot lower. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's the same thing, where they're only going to put so high of a total, but it should be even much higher, kind of like the total, like I was saying with the over-unders in baseball, where they wouldn't go under 7, even though it should be 5.5. Instead, they'll just jack up that total because 7's such a key number. Yeah, man. Wow. That just brought back some memories of baseball going unders. I can't wait. It's almost here. Baseball's almost here.
Yeah, baseball is very close. And by the way, I'm looking real quick. I think Alabama, up until last night, when the total was 173 or more, they were 7-1 to the over this year on their 8 highest totals. And then last night went under 178 because they had their 4th best defensive game of the season against Kentucky, but they still scored 99. It was still a very fast pace. We'll see what happens today. Johnny, I'll let you run. Do we have a steam room this weekend? Let me know about that.
I had it yesterday because I wanted to get them primed for the March Madness, having it on a weekday. We went over because I knew there'd be less games, you know what I mean, to do today and less to talk about. So we went steam room yesterday, went through every game in college basketball, covered some NBA, some UFC that's going on later today. And of course, Tuesday is the first class that starts. If you're a yearly guy, make sure you're already click that link that's on my Twitter because you have to send in your email that's with your WagerTalk account so you could get private access code. Everyone's access code is going to be different. So make sure you get that. Don't wait till Tuesday because that's when we start off. Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. And I have listed exactly what you're going to need. Just go on my Twitter. I list the 6 things you're going to need. Not difficult at all. And yeah, we're ready to go Tuesday, my man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. And once again, you can check Gianni out every weekday at 12:30 Eastern on WagerTalk today. He'll be back on Monday and Tuesday. And then that blackjack course for all clients who are all sport, all access starts Tuesday night. Check him out, wt.buzz/VR or Vegas Runner at wagertalk.com. All right, I'm going to get to Ross Benjamin. We'll get to some games. We're letting everybody stew a little bit in the chat. If you got your games ready to ask Ross, bring them because I'm bringing in Ross Benjamin. Ross the boss. And I got to let everybody know, Ross, there will be no show tomorrow on Sunday morning for Last Call. But there's a good reason. That's because we are doing a live show at 6 p.m. Eastern Sunday night for the NCAA tournament. And it'll be archived afterwards. If you got to watch the networks to see the bracket instead of us, shame on you. But once again, the Selection Sunday show live. First time ever we're doing this Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on WagerTalk TV. And as the brackets are coming out, several WagerTalk cappers, including myself, will be breaking them down, giving you our initial thoughts from a handicapping, from a betting perspective. So if you want your $1 office bracket perspective, watch the other networks. If you want a betting perspective, watch us. Or if you're out and about, watch the replay here 24/7 on WagerTalk TV. I go back and watch the replays when Ross is on, and I just freeze the frame. I just stare. It makes my day better. There we go. I got the laugh already. I had the over-under half a minute so I could get a nice little laugh out of Ross, and I got it.
Yeah, you're my man, Steve. You know, when I need to smile, I certainly always do when I talk to you.
There we go.
So
he freezes my picture when he needs a laugh.
All this stuff back in the late 90s and early 2000s when I was a young man.
Yeah, we've lost half our viewers weren't born yet. They've already logged off and they're playing something on TikTok probably. So hopefully the users hey, listeners, if you found it useful, live chat, let us know. And more importantly, if you're watching the replay and you didn't fast forward through, let us know in the comments below because we obviously can tailor these shows to what you want. But hey, it's game time, Ross. We got a lot of games this afternoon. If we got any questions in the live chat, throw them our way. Let's see. Does Arizona get it done? Asked Mark. What's your thoughts on Arizona? Pac-12. There I go again. This is going to be a confusing tournament bracket, Ross. We're going to have like 4 conferences representing like 40 teams probably in the tournament. It's going to be the most bizarre thing ever. And by the way, I read the stipulations the other day about how, you can't have a first-round matchup with conference opponents. I'm like, boy, is that going to be tricky this year. So the rules going into this year is that they could play as early as the second round if they didn't play twice. No, maybe even 3 times. If they only played once in the regular season, they could play in the second round, the round of 32. So we're going to get a lot of conference matchups on Saturday and Sunday for the first time ever. It would be interesting. But this is a big one here. The Big 12 championship game, Arizona-Houston. Houston Cougars, and he's asking about Arizona, but the Houston Cougars every year go into the tournament as one of the only 2 or 3 teams, top 10 efficiency in Ken Palm in both offense and defense, slow half-court tempo, and they always seem to come up short. Is this year going to be any different, and what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I mean, their ability to knock down threes this year, meaning Houston, is much different than in past years. I mean, you're talking about a team hitting over 38% of their three-point shots this year within conference, too. So that's the big telling factor for me when it comes to Houston in terms of their chances of making a very deep run, if not winning it all, compared to the teams that fell short in years past. So anyway, in this particular matchup against Arizona, I don't like the side in this game. I just think that number is extremely sharp. And I'm going to stay away from that, but I am going to look at the total of 135. And you guys were talking, you and the Greek there were talking about, ways to look at and perceive totals. And you look at this total and you look at 135 and you look at Arizona's first 2 games of this tournament, 88-77 and 86-80, yet we're sitting here at 135. Well, there's a good reason for that. And Steve made some points right up front. I mean, Houston's number 2 nationally in defensive efficiency, number 1 within Big 12 play. They're also number 360 out of 366 Division I teams when it comes to offensive tempo, which you also touched upon, Steve. And that, and then they're number 1 in offensive rebounding. So on many occasions, Houston takes, pretty close to a minute in one possession because of they're able to get multiple possessions. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but because of the offensive rebounding, they don't play at a fast pace, and they could take as much as a minute off per offensive possession because of that. If Houston does have a weakness, it's their three-point defense, Steve. But, Arizona, only 32.4% in conference play, and they're 13th in the Big 12 in three-point attempts. And I like this game to go under the total. These teams played at Arizona earlier this season. Houston came away with a 62-58 win. And again, I think a lot of bettors are going to look at, like I just alluded to earlier, Arizona's first 2 games, the scores, Houston's ability to knock down threes and think they're getting a steal by going over 135. I beg to differ. I'm going to go under 135 in this game, Steve.
Yeah, I'm never going to talk you off a Houston under or an Alabama over like we talked about earlier with Gianni. That's kind of once again, I use everything as a filter. That's my initial short list, right? And you're hardly ever finding a reason to go the other way. And also, it's a conference final. I think it should have a playoff atmosphere, which brings a little more defensive intensity usually in these games. So we'll see what happens. That is the Big 12 championship game tonight between Houston and Arizona. That's at 6 p.m. Eastern. Currently, Houston about a 6-point favorite. Totals around 135. Dipped a little bit from the opener of 136. All right, we got a question on a little bit of the smaller board here. Iona, sharp or square today? I don't know if you have an opinion on that one. Iona, not a team I talk a lot about. They're playing Mount St. Mary's in the Metro Atlantic Championship game, Ross. It's 7:30 Eastern tonight. Iona's gone from a 3.5 to 4-point favorite. Heavy money on the under here, 137.5 down to 133.5. It's not a game I've dug into initially, but that total move looks pretty sharp. And once again, a championship game, maybe we see a little bit more defense. And also, a lot of these teams playing no rest situations sometimes hurts that three-point shooting.
Yeah, a lot of the value on the under has been taken away, though, right, Steve, with that move. It's certainly a sharp move. But, if you look at conference tournament finals over the years, Steve, it has a great history of games going under. I believe if you look at conference tournament finals since the late 80s, it's somewhere hovering around 60% to the under in conference tournament finals. So something to keep in mind in that particular instance. I just think there's better games on the board than in, these Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference games to me are, I don't know about how you feel about, they're so unpredictable. With these teams. And I just, unless I see something I absolutely love, I stay away from these games at any cost.
Yeah, it's a great point, Ross. And it's an analogy I've used for a long time is it's kind of like handicapping the lesser horse tracks. You just get a lower quality of competition. It's just a little bit more random. And I like Class A leagues. I like the big boy conferences because I think you get a cleaner handicap, whether it's football or college basketball. It's the same thing with the Triple Crown races, the Breeders' Cup. You also get more public money on those bigger ones. It's almost sharp versus sharp, especially during the regular season with these added games.
Yeah, and don't forget the wagering pool on games like the one we're just talking about, Iona and Mount St. Mary's, is going to be much smaller than those of the Power Conference tournament games. So it doesn't take much. It takes very little to move a line in games such as this as compared to those on the power conferences, because in my opinion, the sports books are trying to protect themselves because they are fearful of not getting the buyback like you might on these power conference games. So, it's something to keep in mind.
Well, we'll talk about a power conference game here. How about the ACC championship, Louisville-Duke? I have 8 teams. I'm going to do a video on this later this week. I'll probably talk about it tomorrow night on the live show at 6 Eastern Sunday, but done a little back testing on what teams that win the national championship usually have in common every year. And I mentioned they're always usually a top 10 efficiency offense by the end of the 6-game run. Sometimes they start a little lower, top 20 defense. But something else that goes a little underrated is that most teams are bottom half of the pace rating. And one team that fits all those molds is Clemson. And I know Brian Power, he's going to be on the show tomorrow night. Brian's already done a video last week about Clemson being one of his sleepers. And I was kind of hoping, Ross, that they wouldn't go too far in the ACC tournament. And them losing last night's like perfect. They win a game out. They don't have to play an extra game. They'll be a little more underrated now. Brad Burnell, by the way, took them to the Elite Eight last year for the first time, and they're probably better this year. So my point is I'm kind of glad Clemson got bumped. Instead, we've got Louisville, who is also a dangerous team. They beat Clemson this year. And, of course, the big news, Cooper Flagg out for Duke, not expected to play today. We'll see if he's available for the tournament. I think Duke was as good as anybody in the country. If he's not there, I don't think they are anymore. I faded them last night with UNC. Never in doubt. UNC was down 21 at the half. But it makes sense, right? It was a full game play, not a first half play for a reason, because Duke came out with a little bit of energy, as I thought they might without their superstar. But it did catch up to them. Really curious to see your take on Duke here now against Louisville tonight in the championship game.
Yeah, and it's not like going back to Clemson real quickly. It's not like it was a bad loss. They lost to a Louisville team that's won 20 of their last 21 games. So, yeah, a no Cooper Flagg for today. That's certainly going to be a factor. We saw it rear its ugly head down the stretch, as Steve just mentioned. Yeah, 24-point lead with a little over 16 minutes to play. And if not for a lane violation, Duke was very lucky to come away with a 3-point win in that contest. But in any event, in a big game like this, when you're losing your leading scorer, leading rebounder, and leading assist guy in Cooper Flagg against a team that's going to be playing with revenge, because Louisville faced Duke in their ACC opener, and they lost that game by 11 on their home floor. And Cooper Flagg had 20 points and 7 rebounds in that game, was a major difference. And since that loss, like I touched upon, Louisville's won 20 of their next 21 games. So Duke is to me, a shorthanded Duke team that already has a regular season title and already has their virtual lock for a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Not a lot to play for in terms of, desperation and urgency. Louisville, on the other hand, you talk about where they were last year compared to this year, Steve. They're going to be really inspired against a big-name program like Duke in an ACC final. And the Cardinals are 3-0 straight up in 3-0 straight up in ATS this year, when coming off a straight-up dog win like they did yesterday. They defeated Clemson as a 2.5-point dog, and in those 3 wins and covers, they won by 15.3 points per game. And so it proves to me that this is a team, when coming off an upset win, doesn't lose their emotion. They don't have an emotional letdown. And again, I would think that would be even more the case in a conference tournament game. So I like the underdog here. I think there's a lot of value here. I wouldn't be shocked to see an outright upset, but I'm not going to get greedy, Steve. And I hope the viewers wouldn't as well if they follow my advice and take Louisville +6 against Duke.
So I'll tell you where we've seen some sharp money in this game, Ross. Looking at the live odds screen here, it's opened the total. The side opened 6.5. It's down to 6 now. We've seen a little bit of money on Louisville. The total, though, opened 142.5. It's now up to 147. The sharper leading indicator books, 147.5, even a 148 starting to show. So the sharp money is on the over here in the Duke-Louisville game. That goes contrary to what we just talked about, right? About conference championship games usually being more unders. Cooper Flagg, one of the most important offensive players in the nation, is out. What's your take on that total moving higher? It's a little surprising.
I think that the 142.5 going to 148, it's a huge overcompensation by the books. I think there's some value in going the other way now, going to the under. So yes, I mean at 142.5, even if it went to 143, 144, and seeing more money on the under, a reverse line move, for example, I would say yes. You know, with Cooper Flagg out, why is this number going up? But a 6-point move is a huge move, Steve. You know, and it's just like the Greek said, you're almost better off if you like the over, to wait to close the game time because you might get a huge buyback, especially from those gentlemen who bet over. I mean, that's a huge middle. If you got down early and you come back the other way to try, with some of your money, not all of your money, to go under. So that's a confusing one to me, but one I certainly wouldn't play the over at that high of a number right now.
Yeah, it's interesting, too. Last night totaled 145. Obviously, that could have been very close, free throws and whatnot. The Georgia Tech game, he played half of that game on Thursday, totaled 148. But I'm looking right now at Duke. Their offensive efficiency rating the last two games was still very good, but it was lower than it was lower than 9 of their previous 10 games during the regular season with Flagg in the lineup. So they're not a better offensive team without the best player in the nation. The defensive rating was about average the last two games, but a lot weaker than about half of their previous 10. So it's interesting that the total is rising higher. And Steve Ross, another question here from Leg Show Magazine, one of our loyal viewers. I think UC San Diego is laying too many points, -6 versus Irvine. What's your take on this one, Ross? Big West championship game tonight. Irvine's got to win to get in. San Diego, some people think, have a chance in an at-large, but I don't think it's as good as people think. Although now that they've made the finals, they definitely have a better shot, even if they lose this game.
I think you'd have a hard time leaving them out, even with a loss here. I mean, if you look at the KenPom ratings, and I do, they have them the number 37 best team in the country. So they're right up there, and they got some nice non-conference wins as well. In terms of, is it too many points? The last I checked, there was heavy money on San Diego. And Irvine played a high-scoring game yesterday in a win over Cal Poly. This is a game, again, I think because of the high-scoring game that they played yesterday, you're going to see some overaction. I might be more inclined to look at the under in this game. But in terms of the side, yeah, I agree. It might be too many points, but I'm not willing to fade a team like UC San Diego, who, you just said, Steve, just because they had such a great record and they got a decent resume, and KenPom having so highly, they're no lock if they lose this game to be in the tournament. So I think you have to factor that in. It's not like Duke, who's going to be a number 1 seed whether they win or lose because Cooper Flagg is out. And the tournament committee will look at that if they lose rather than bump them down to the number 2 line. This is a team that's going to be desperate and urgent. I'm going to stay away from the side in this game. I would lean more toward the under, Steve.
Yeah, and I would say also if they don't win this game, it's a bad loss as a 6-point favorite, which actually hurts their chances. Yeah. If they win it, they get the automatic. So I'd say there's a good chance they don't get in if they lose this game, but it might not happen, so we'll never know. We'll see. They did lose to them, by the way, in the regular season, then they blew them out, I think, by 18 in the rematch later in the year. That's San Diego over Irvine. Ross, great seeing you, great segment. Look forward to hearing more from you this week. Ross does tons of free videos, just as I do here on WagerTalk TV. So click subscribe, click that bell for an instant alert, and you'll never miss bonus free play videos that we both do on a daily basis. Ross, what else you got going on at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, those free pick videos, by the way, in college basketball on WagerTalk TV, 16-8 with my last 24. So make sure you tune in on a daily basis. I'll have something for you, especially through the tournament and tournament action, whether it be the NIT, CBI, NCAA, or any other three-letter tournament that's out there. But anyway, on a 9-3 run in college basketball over the last 4 days. So things are going well there. The NBA been going really well since last year, Steve, up over 79 units in the NBA, which is number 1 in terms of units earned during that course of time in the NBA. Last year, NCAA tournament, folks, 22-14, 61%, and winning over 28 units, and that was good for number 2 at WagerTalk. So 179 will get you the rest of the college basketball season right now from yours truly, and that takes you right through the tournament championship game, NCAA tournament championship game. In the NBA, folks, I know the tournament's going on, it's March Madness, but there's still 3 months left in the NBA season when you count the NBA finals going into mid-June. So take advantage of my NBA because I'm doing very well in the NBA over the last year. And you can check out all my hot streaks, wt.buzz/RB, wt.buzz/RB, all confirmed and verified by WagerTalk.
And I'm going to do you one better, Ross. You get the rest of college basketball for $169, my friend. $169 is the current price. There we go. Instant $10 discount like that. Ross Benjamin, right? And he is, by the way, number 2 in NBA, over 60% the last 30 days. So don't sleep on the NBA, like he said. It's just as profitable this time of year. Ross Benjamin, WagerTalk.com. We're going to finish off with some hockey in a moment with Andrew Mcinnis. But first, I do have some sharp action, a sharp report from Arthur DeCesar, our friend at the Westgate Superbook. Follow him on Twitter, on X, at ArtDice21, ArtDice21. It's a great follow. You can see him on a lot of these shows. He'll be back here in the near future when we start heading into March Madness, I'm sure. But he does have some early action. This is within the last hour or so. It's maybe changed a little, but Boise State's gone from pick'em to -1. That was a sharp move on Boise State. Also, the Michigan State game, the Big Ten semifinal, Michigan State, the over money from 144 up to 146. By the way, Nick was asking about this game in the live chat on YouTube Shorts. I did do a free play video on this one, along with the early SEC game. They both start in about 1 hour. I know we didn't touch on the Tennessee-Auburn game or the Michigan State Wisconsin games much on the show here, but I do have free play videos on both those games and a solo and a double video here on the channel, so you can watch those as well. Iona from -3 to -4. We were talking about that game earlier. Some sharp money on Iona from -3 to -4. Those were the sharp moves. Boise, the over in the Michigan State game, and Iona. But there's also some public action. St. John's and Houston. You know, Ross just talked about that Houston-Arizona Big 12 championship game. Public is on Houston, yet we've seen that line pretty much hold steady. And the Johnnies. St. John's has become a public team. Not a surprise. Rick Pitino's done an incredible job after burying Louisville. And by the way, we were talking Louisville earlier. They were 4-28 2 years ago, 8-24 last year. Now they've won 20 of their last 21 and could win the ACC championship. Let's see what Rick Pitino does at St. John's here in the near future. But right now, it's been great for the Johnnies. They're very public, and that line has gone from 5 to 6.5. So that's not necessarily sharp money. Arthur DeCesar saying it's public money at the Westgate. And his favorite play of the day. We just talked about this game. UC San Diego -5, and Art is sharp because those -5s are no longer available. This line's gone from 4.5 to 5.5. So Art liked it at -5, but it's now up to 5.5. And that's the game we just talked about. That's your Big West Championship at 9:40 Eastern tonight on Saturday. So special thank you to Arthur DeCesar, risk supervisor at the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can follow him on X at ArtDice21. Hey, send him a note on X. Let him know you appreciate him chiming in here on Last Call on WagerTalk TV. All right, lots of basketball. Once again, there's tons of free play videos. I've got the 2 afternoon games. I'm going to do some more right after this show for some nighttime games. So click subscribe, click the bell for instant alerts for when these free play videos go up, including more today on Saturday. We have our Last Call live show tomorrow on Sunday. Don't get here on Sunday morning. We won't be here. We'll be here Sunday night at 6 Eastern, live when the brackets are released, breaking them down real time from a sports betting perspective. There you see it, the Selection Sunday Last Call show at 6 Eastern here. And once again, you click that bell when you subscribe, or you click on the QR code on the screen there. It'll take you directly to that show on Sunday night. First time we've done it, we'll be taking your live questions as well. And of course, if you catch the replay, drop the questions on this show or any show in the chat below on the replay, because we do read the comments and reply back here on WagerTalk TV. Andrew, welcome to the show. And you're not quite as young as a couple years ago when I first met you, but you're still young compared to Ross and me and Gianni. And it cracks me up when we're telling those stories about the late 90s, early 2000s. Can you imagine a time, Andrew, where you could not get over-unders on any college football games, maybe just 1 or 2 TV games on a Saturday? It was different times, my friend.
You know what, Steve, hearing you guys talk about that, finding out what the scores were even going to be.
Yeah, that was,
not
I got a
able to just instantly check them. It's like my version of that, and I know it's a lot different, but is kind of out at Family Cottage. So we have like no service, right? And so we had cable, but no internet growing up at the cottage. I had like 3 or 4 channels. And we did have one sports channel. So I'd be watching the ticker. So if I missed it if I had to bet on a baseball game, and this is like years ago. Minutes. Yeah, you had to wait till it went all the way around again to see what happened in that game. But that's the only way I can really relate there. But yeah, I mean, now you get to find out right away.
Well, next time you go to the cottage, if you still are having trouble, I'll send you this sports pager. I doubt the company still exists. It's from the 90s. And then ESPN briefly in the 2000s, I was going to help them with a sports betting app for this flip phone. And then the iPhone, this is a true story. This was like, I'll tell you when it was. It was 06. Because in 07, the iPhone was released, and this idea went away pretty fast when you can get the internet on your phone at any point. That's a true story. But I keep these within arm's reach for some stupid reason. They were right there. It's just prop action. I'm like carrot top here on Last Call Wager Talk TV. All right, Andrew.
Not Andy Lang's
NHL,
props.
Man.
Those are Steve's props. Those are your version of props.
Those are a different type of props. They don't really make you money, but you don't lose money with them either. What are you looking at in hockey today, man? Let us know about the NHL.
Yeah, there's a bunch of great games here today, Steve. And, it's funny because some teams have 17, 18 games remaining in this season, but it's been such a close battle for the wild card races, both in the Western Conference and in the Eastern Conference. And then if you're not battling for a wild card playoff spot, you're battling within certain situations and spots within your division, trying to win that division to secure home ice, trying to win the division so you can play a certain wild card team. So a big game right now, a big game for today everyone's talking about is Maple Leafs versus Senators. Taking a look at the odds logic page here, we have seen the Maple Leafs take a lot of, the Senators take a lot of money so far. I mean, the opening number on this game, I saw minus 165 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now current number at Circa is minus 135. So people are coming in heavy on this Senators team right now, and kind of rightfully so, for how they've been playing. I mean, they've been getting, shut down goaltending. They had added a player at the trade deadline, which I still think it's kind of weird how much later the trade deadline is than many other leagues. But Dylan Cousins, they also added Zetterlund, a really good fit for them. But you have to think at this point right now, if you were to jump in on this game, I think it's kind of a discount here. If you liked the Senators, I would say you kind of missed the boat. You should have got that overnight. If you like the Maple Leafs, I got good news for you. You're getting one hell of a discount on that compared to what you would have gotten if you played this even earlier today or yesterday overnight. So kind of would lean towards the Maple Leafs side, but I'll tell you what I like the most in this game is the over. It's a rivalry game between these two teams, the Battle of Ontario. The Senators have had a phenomenal turnaround year. They've been playing very consistent hockey, scoring. 2 of the last 3 games between these two teams have gone over the total. So I look towards a lot of goals in this one. But, Steve, I'm curious your thoughts here. I know you're not a hockey guy, but just I'll mostly throw stuff back at you as far as the market is concerned here. I mean, when you see minus 165 overnight, close to 135 now at Circa, you can tell which team is right now. But at the end of the day, would you say to people they kind of missed the boat if they want Ottawa at this point?
Well, this is a good segue to baseball, which starts this month. Obviously, it's so different than when we're talking about a 2-point move and a point spread like in basketball or football, is that today, it doesn't matter, right? They either win or they lose.
Yes.
So it's so tricky because so few people other than you and me and the other cappers at WagerTalk that are professional bettors really are taking a long-term investment approach. It's so tough because you're not going to feel the difference today. It's going to be either a 100% win or 100% loss, but that 10, 20, 30 cents adds up tremendously. And over the course of the season, if you're taking 30 cents worse in the price, you're going to have to win several percents higher just wins, to get there. So it's tricky, Andrew. It's obviously the right side. Whether there's still value there or not, I don't crunch the NHL numbers, but that's something we definitely run into in baseball. And it's tricky because, it's probably still the right play today, but is there value there? That's a whole different discussion, right?
Well, we talk a lot about, home field advantage or home ice advantage and how a team can play in certain ways. So Toronto had a bad scheduling spot at home a few weeks ago, and they hosted the Sharks. They lost that one, and I'm sure you even know the Sharks aren't very good. So they lose that one. They go on the road in Sin City. They lose 5-2 to the Vegas Golden Knights. Then they lose to the Avalanche 7-4. Obviously, 2 great teams. Then they helped me cash a 5% play by beating Utah 4-3. In the process, though, they blew a 3-0 lead, made it sweaty for me and my clients, and won that one in a shootout. And then their first game back at home after the road trip, they lose that one 3-2 over the Panthers. So this will mark their second game back after a road trip. So it could be something worth looking at. It is the second game back, not that first game back. And that's kind of my takeaway from it. Like you said, it's the right side, the long-term approach. You're getting the best of the number now. But I wouldn't talk anybody out of looking towards some goals in this one. But moving towards another one that I wanted to look at here, and I want to take a look at Tampa Bay, because Boston and Tampa Bay are two teams in absolute different directions right now. This Boston Bruins team, for the first time since I was, a child, pretty much, they've kind of sold the farm at the trade deadline, the Boston Bruins. They got rid of Brandon Carlo, they got rid of Charlie Coyle, and they got rid of their captain, which is very rare to see at the trade deadline, a team captain get traded, Steve. And so what's funny is the Bruins got a little bit of a spark after that happened. They beat the Lightning 4-0, and then they beat the Panthers 3-2, and then most recently they lost 6-3 to the Senators. But you know how it goes. When you talk about rapid revenge, when you talk about a home-and-home situation, I mean, they had that spark. It's the same spark you get from when your coach gets fired, from when a player gets injured and a team rallies around them. This is going to be a client play for me here. I'm going to take a look at Tampa Bay, but more so I'm going to take a look at their team total. I've become a real big team totals guy lately. This is right in that threshold that I like to look at, plus 105 for the Boston Bruins to get to that magic number of 4 goals, over 3.5. They had that spark after the trade deadline. The players all felt responsible to step up. It's the same thing, like I said, when you fire your coach. But at this point, I'm not really believing that spark is going to last. We saw it against Ottawa when they gave up 6 goals. Tampa Bay lost to them 4-0 last time out, only a couple games ago. And Tampa's off a loss when they lost 4-3 to Philadelphia. All of this adds up to the more motivated spot for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're a better and deeper team. And forget about the minus 180. Forget about that money line. When Boston's going to lose these days, they're going to give up 4 goals. I'm turning a minus 180 into a plus 105. I like that one quite a bit. And again, Steve, throw it back to you with this. These situational spots, right? Like a temporary boost for a team. And then it kind of, once it ends, it kind of fizzles away for a little while.
Yeah, I think that's the one edge you find with daily sports, whether it's baseball, NBA, or NHL, especially the pro sports. The markets are very efficient. The lines are basically set as the whole season, right? I think where you find your edge are these little 5 or 10 game subsets where a team is overperforming or underperforming. Sometimes it can be a spark like a coaching change. It can be a key player back in or out. And that's where the odds makers struggle a little bit because they don't want to over or under adjust, based on just 1 or 2 games when there's been 30, 40, 50 games played. So, yeah, I like where you're going with that, but you also have to know when to get off that train, right? You ride it for a few games or you get off real quick. But vice versa, you always hear me say, don't try to catch that falling knife. That's why when a team's in a downward spiral, that momentum can continue both good and bad for 5, 10, 12 games sometimes. We're going to finish off one more question for you, Andrew. Titan CT, one of our loyal viewers here. See Big Daddy, see Daryl Turner, see some of our regulars. Sean Alvarez there, of course, and even Johnny Detroit popping in the chat. Thanks to all the live viewers here on WagerTalk Last Call. And once again, you can watch these replays 24/7. And I do follow up and check the comments throughout the day. So if you have other questions on the replay, please drop them below. And also, we'll be live Sunday night, not tomorrow morning, but Sunday night, 6 Eastern, for that live selection show, taking your questions in. But Titan CT wants to know about the Kings on the puck line. And here's another example, Andrew, of turning a big favorite to maybe plus money. The Kings are one of the biggest favorites. My Washington Capitals are minus 240 at San Jose, but Kings are minus 220 at home against Nashville, 5.5. So probably want to be looking at the puck line if you like the Kings. How are you approaching this game?
So, Steve, I haven't released one puck line play all season long. All season long. And it's because I've never been good at them. I've never liked those. And I've mentioned I've fallen in love with these team totals because, I ask people this. How often do you like a team to win by 2 goals or more on a puck line and think they're going to do that by scoring fewer than 4 goals? Most of the time, you're going to need 4 goals if you have a puck line. 3-1 could happen, some 2-0, of course. But a lot of times, these teams that cover puck lines for their backers, they score 4 goals. And in this instance, you're getting like a minus 115 team total and like a decent plus price, plus 110, 115 on the puck line. I get that. But I just prefer taking these team totals because that way you eliminate the other team from the equation. So overall, I'd be lying if I said I have a play on this game. One thing I'm going to say is that Nashville, to me, is going to be a feisty team down the stretch. Nashville is a team that I have circled that's going to be that team that's already eliminated from the playoffs, but they brought in a few free agents last summer that still have to prove themselves. I feel like they're going to be a good team. We can back down the stretch, that it's going to have that motivation still. Like, you know how like when in the NBA and certain sports, like this team is dead, you can fade them. I don't think Nashville is one of those teams. They are playing second half of a back-to-back. That could affect them. They lost 2-1 in a very low event game yesterday. I wouldn't be shocked overall to see some goals in this one. I was kind of interested actually in Nashville over 2.5 goals plus 100. So I guess if I like that, I'd probably like the full game over as well. But the thing is with LA, Steve, I'll close it with this. They're coming off a lot of big games, a lot of games that matter to them. I'm not so sure this game against Nashville means a hell of a lot to them right now.
Love where you went with that, though. One of the things I was going to ask you was maybe a play on a play against team down the stretch here, and you just answered that with Nashville. So once again, great NHL segment. And even if you're not a hockey bettor, that is a fantastic tip. I love the team total over instead of laying the 1.5, and that's something baseball bettors pay attention. You can use that same logic come baseball season. If you don't want to play the run lines or a big juice money line favorite, you can start looking at team totals. It makes so much sense, Andrew, that if they're going to cover the two goals or more, the 2 runs in baseball, they got to get some runs, right? Especially when the over-under is 5.5, like we see on almost every hockey game today on Saturday. That's Andrew McGinnis. Is McGinnis Irish, Scottish? It's got to be something.
Irish, yes.
There we go.
Irish. I got a little
bit
of both.
I wore green today. I wore green, and of course, St. Patrick's Day is Monday, and I've got some Irish in me. I definitely am like a quarter, a third, a half. I don't know. It's been diluted over the years. I drink a lot of water now, but seriously,
like we all are a little bit.
I think everyone's got some Irish in them. If not, you know, Andrew and I will help you with that. No, all jokes aside, we need a good St. Patrick's Day promo, and we need it all weekend long because the weekend is here. Give us something.
You know what, Steve? I was thinking to myself, I kind of want to like message the head office and get a great deal because I'm going to be on last call today. And I was like, you know what? Why bother when we have this great deal, the Pat 17? I don't have to message anybody. Pat 17 is a great one here. And look, I would love to be able to get in the mix and be doing college basketball with all you guys. But guess what, Steve? I'll follow along with you. I'll follow along with Gianni. I'll follow along with Ross and all the great handicappers at WagerTalk. I'm staying in my lane, and right now my lane's been going pretty well. 7-1 run in the NHL, 72% run long-term on 5% plays. I hit a 5% play on Monday, hit a 5% play on Wednesday. Number 2 overall at the website with NHL, number 7 overall in 2025, all sports, no basketball, just hockey and mostly low volume here, taking care of business. So you guys want to join me 30 days or the rest of the full season, get all of my playoff predictions, sides, totals, team totals, and props, all that stuff. Pat 17, 17% off anything. And we got a few plays on today's card I really do like.
Yeah, and Andrew always talk about diversifying your portfolio. Treat this as an investment, right? NHL with Andrew, college basketball with myself, Ross, Gianni, NBA as well. And by the way, that is a multiple use promo code. It's a fill your cart promo code, which means you can use it each and every day, multiple cappers, every purchase you make for the next 3 days and nights. Use PAT17 for an instant 17% discount. You don't even have to be Irish. You don't have to even like the Irish. Just use the promo code if you like saving money. PAT17, PAT17 on every purchase you make the next 3 days and nights. And I'm a good chunk Irish, so I can make that damn joke. It's like the Seinfeld episode where the dentist converts to Judaism to make Jewish jokes. I can make Irish jokes the next 3 days and nights. All right, that'll do it. Andrew McGinnis, Ross Benjamin, and, of course, Gianni the Greek. We will be back tomorrow night, 6 Eastern, live, Sunday night, with the Selection Sunday show. First time in history we're doing this. If you'd like to have interactive live chat with myself and several other cappers, click on X, follow at WagerTalk on X for more information, who will be on board. Last I heard, Brian Power and Mark Zinno are going to be guest hosting. Woo, that'll be fun. And then, of course, I'll be on. I think Rob Vino's going to be on. I haven't even checked the guest list since. But that alone's reason to watch right there. 6 Eastern on WagerTalk TV. And, of course, you can watch the archive 24/7 episode on Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday as you're filling out your brackets. Tons of betting information for you on Selection Sunday. And it starts at 6 Eastern here on WagerTalk TV. I'll be back this afternoon with some more advanced videos. Also, some Saturday night videos. I'm going to try to do some Sunday videos as well once we have the matchups for tomorrow. I do have both the Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Tennessee Auburn games, which start in 1 hour on the channel right now with free plays. So click subscribe, click the bell for instant alerts, and don't forget thumbs up, like, and comment below. The more thumbs up, the more comments, the more shows and videos we do every day here on Wager Talk TV. And if you'd like my personal best bets for Saturday, check out my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. You can get there quicker, wt.buzz/SM. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again on Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday Night Live for the Selection Show here on Wager Talk TV.